Hey, it's Terrie Carr, and thanks for checking out my web series. I bring in the artists and we chat. New artists, classics, and everyone in between. In this episode, we meet Cory Marks and talk music, Rush fandom, inspirations, and jumping out of planes. Let's go. So I'm with Cory Marks. So I love the way that you and me masterminded this Zoom, because with like rock stars like Cory and artists, you have to like go through their people and we're going through Cory's people. But Cory and I were going back and forth on Instagram. Like I'm like, I got to get you on. And he's like, I want to come on. So we kind of masterminded how to hook up and connect again. So I am so happy to
It
see your
did.
face with your Theory of a Dead Man
Oh.
shirt. I'm prepared for you. I've
You
got
know
my
what?
Rush.
That's so crazy. I was going to wear my Rush shirt and I thought, you know what? I just got out of the shower. I'm going to throw on the Theory tour
You're
short
repping
and
the boys. There's nobody I
up the
love
boys.
more than Tyler and Dave and Dean. The best
They're
guys on
okay.
the
Yeah,
planet, man.
they're all right.
I love those guys. I love this guy. So I first met you in November. So I
Yep.
meet, everybody's telling me Cory's such a great guy. There's two guys that always come up as being the best guys in music, the new guys. And that's you and Tim Montana. So everybody's like, Cory's
Ah,
great, Tim Montana's great. You're gonna love hanging out with both of them. I do, by the way.
thank you. Thank you very
So
much.
when I met you, we just had fun. We had a love of a lot of different things, not only just Rush, but dogs, shelter dogs. You've done so
Hmm.
much for shelters, so that totally bonds with me a lot.
Hmm.
And of course, just a love of great rock and roll. So you're one of those guys that I felt like was like my best friend from high school. The record had
I
not
love
come
it.
out yet, though. You were with me in November, and
That's
Sorry
right.
for Nothing came in December. So
Hmm.
I I only knew at the time what I heard.
Right. Right.
And what a dynamite piece of music. You're described as a
Oh.
singer-songwriter, you're described as rock and roll, country. Some people said there's some metal in there, a great guitar player. How do you see yourself?
Man, I just see myself as me, I guess, as corny as that may sound. I'm just trying to that's exactly it. I'm a little rock, I'm country, definitely a little metal in there too, because I love all those genres and being a drummer before any of this singer-songwriter thing, and of course I'm a big Neil Peart fan and Rush and getting into the heavier stuff in my teens. When I first started doing this, singer-songwriter thing, there was that angle of kind of like, well, there's no one really doing a mix of Merle Haggard, Ozzy Osbourne with some Eric Church and Bryan Adams kind of all mixed together. And in our live show we throw in a little Rush too. So I don't really think there's anyone doing it yet either. So I've just been trying to create something a little, I guess, fresh, if you will. Um, Something that just kind of walks that line. I'm country, I'm rock, there's metal, and hopefully just try to make the best music possible.
And you mentioned Bryan Adams, which I love. I am a huge Bryan Adams fan. Yes, I saw him on that tour. Bryan Adams is such an underrated
Yeah.
performer, songwriter, and somebody who was this giant MTV star. You could not put on MTV back in the day without seeing an amazing Bryan Adams video. He can croon, he can rock. When I hear Cuts Like a Knife, Run to You is one of my all-time favorite songs.
Oh
That is like
yeah.
a heavy, what a passionate,
Yeah.
amazing jam. And you've always credited him for
Yeah.
being someone that you've been a huge fan of. So I'm so happy because I love to get him a little bit into the conversation. Do you know him? Does he know you're such a big
I
fan?
I don't I mean I don't know. I hope maybe my name's come up. I know his drummer Pat. I know his drummer Pat and I Pat Stewart, and I've never met him yet. I'm putting it
You
out
never
there.
met him. You're two
I've never.
Canadians. You have to hook up with Bryan Adams.
Oh, and on top of that, I mean, my journey started in Kingston, Ontario, where Bryan Adams is from. There's a lot of weird stuff that kind of
Sure.
cool stuff. Or everyone now, especially, and now that this record's come out, and they've come to my shows and they see me cover Bryan Adams, and I talk about him a lot. And I do think you're right. I mean, I think he should be more well known in this day and age. I mean, we hear him a lot on the radio up here in Canada. I'm not sure what it's like over there. I know that he still plays. He still tours. He's just a talented man. I could go on about him, but like the biggest thing for me was it was going. I've seen him live now 3 times in the last 2 years. I mean, I got engaged at his concert in Pittsburgh,
Wow,
so
that's
it's like
amazing.
I'm hoping
And I
that,
love
you
his
know,
voice. He's such an underrated
oh,
vocalist. He's such a great vocalist in that realm of like a Rod Stewart. And he just has that great soulful,
he's just so
rasped very sexy sounding. He always sounds sexy.
man, even as a dude, yeah, it's sexy and it's rock.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great stuff. And he's a huge inspiration. I think not only as a singer performer, but just such an incredible musician and songwriter.
No
I don't think he
doubt.
gets. And really, if you break it all down, it's like he was this rock star from Canada, in the early to mid into the late '80s. But there's so much more that he's done, like writing the music to Spirit, the movie, and voicing a cartoon, The Horse and Spirit, and writing certain songs for movies and for certain things. So I think just incredible talent, and yeah, I hope to meet him one day. I
You
mean,
need to meet
um,
him. He needs to
yeah,
meet you. He
yeah,
needs to
it'd
meet
be
you.
it would be just and some of my friends up here in Canada who are from the west coast and Vancouver, they record at a studio. They've met him. They've mentioned like while we're making a record, you'll see Brian like come down like, hey, what's up,
You
guys?
should
And just
do the
kind of
next record at his studio. Oh my
that
gosh,
would
what
be
would flow through you for that? That would be amazing.
oh
Well, let's talk about this record. I want to talk about this record because Sorry for Nothing came out in December. Um,
yes,
I want to talk about a couple of the tracks on the record. I mean, the title track is amazing. It's
thank
such
you,
a great songwriting. Talk to me
thank
a little
you.
bit about the inspiration for that and why you decided to call the record Sorry for Nothing.
Well, so I wrote that song with Aaron Gillespie and Riley Thomas in Nashville, and it was such a great writing experience writing with those guys because they're really talented, artists and songwriters, and the way Aaron, um, brought, we've never met before. We just show up at his studio, and it's just like, okay, what are we going to write about today? So I got to tell him a bit about myself, and obviously he did. We all did our homework a little bit, but. We just really dug deep into like, okay, where do you come from? What have you been through? Your rock, your country. How do we walk that line? And this song is really just a bit of it's a story of, where I've been, what I've been through, and certain part of you get to see a little bit of who I am as well. But it's really just that kind of walk through life of where I've been, what I've been through, and where I want to be, and it goes hand in hand with what I'm doing. Is where some rock will be like he's country, and some country will be he's too rock, or he's no obviously not metal enough to be metal, or whatever it is. But most of all, I'm just trying to create a sound that's hopefully unique and loved on doesn't matter what genre you listen to. And for that, I'm sorry for nothing. That's essentially why I knew the music on this record. There was so much, and I picked these 13 songs, but the next record will be just like it, where there's going to be Merle Haggard, Vince Gill mixed in with Bryan Adams, but there's going to be, some Godsmack mixed in with a little Pantera and Travis Tritt. It's just something that I've always liked, and there's going to be more songs like that. And yeah, it's a good representation of I think who I am as a person and as a musician.
Yeah,
And
I think this whole
again,
record is like that. I mean, 17 is such a beautiful,
thank you.
well, such a beautiful song, and that's you, right? Because when I'm
Hmm.
listening to that song, I'm picturing that's who you were, that this is
Yeah.
about you. This is an autobiographical
Yeah,
song.
it's small town, relationships. I'm sure a lot of people can go, whether you're male or female. You listen to that song, I'm sure there's somebody when you listen to that you look back on and think of the, fun,
Totally
crazy,
poignant.
new love,
Absolutely.
new love, and
Absolutely.
that chorus really. I remember writing that with Jacob Bryant and Carson Chamberlain, and I remember thinking this has got to be like a BA chorus key change, and then when we were 17. And I've had a lot of people actually come up and be like, that song reminds me, Sorry for Nothing with the guitar and 17. I've had a number of people be like, it kind of sounds like Bryan Adams. So I'm
Oh,
going,
yeah, yeah,
all
yeah,
right, cool.
yeah,
That's a win for me.
yeah,
Not that I purposely was
absolutely.
like, it's got to sound like Bryan Adams, but I mean, and he's got so many different sounds too, really, right? I mean, you go from Heaven to Kids Wanna Rock as two different spectrums, really.
Yeah.
And like the Spirit record that I was telling you about. But anyways, yeah. So that's those are two of my favorite songs on the record to play
Yeah, me
live,
too.
and
Me too. I
and
mean, we
so
got the
thank you.
party tune, we got Drunk When I'm High. So
Yeah, of
that's such
course.
a great fun party tune. We got the banger and a lot like me. So this is a record that really has a lot of textures, a lot of flavors,
Hmm.
and is one of those great, I call them journey records where you kind of
Thank
take the
you.
journey as the
We'll take you
record
for a ride.
evolves and it takes you for a ride. Well, talk to me. I've read in interviews and when I had you in studio, you talked about it being all about the song, really, and songs are very important to you. When did you
Mhm.
know you were a good songwriter? When did you know it was all about the song as opposed to just being the guy with a guitar on stage?
I mean, I look at, I mean, my influences again, of course, BA, but the songwriters like Bryan Adams, sorry, Merle Haggard, and just so many of my, I mean, even if you go to Rush, the way they write, I mean, the way Neil would structure and write songs, and there's just a lot of depth to
They made
them.
me smarter as a rock fan.
Yeah,
I
that's
wasn't
right.
as smart when I went in, and then years later, I felt smarter. I learned so much from listening to Rush songs,
It's
right?
it's it's true. It really is. And I think as a songwriter myself, you're always striving to be great and write the next best song and whatnot. So I think the joy of that too is, and even I put that texture in with aviation and being a pilot, is that there's
Oh, that's
never, you can't there's always more to learn, there's always more to do, you can always work on your craft to try to be better. And although I love songs in the last record and the record before that too, I'm hoping that this record as a whole is just that much, maybe a step up, better. And so you're always just trying to write a great song and do great things and try to up the record or song before that.
Were you surprised at how successful Make My Country Rock was for you? I mean, as soon as we started playing that, and it was amazing. There was an instant connection with WDHA listeners. They loved it. I mean, and you've got your friends on there and Travis and Sully, and we talked about this when you were on
Yeah.
the air and Mick Mars and stuff. But
Yeah.
that record really, I mean, Outlaws and Outsiders was your first bust out, and this was
Yeah.
a bust out 2.0.
Hmm.
Did really, really well on the rock charts. Were you surprised, or were you like, nah? I thought this one was going to be a big one.
I, well, when I got the text from Sully and what Mick thought, and obviously Travis being back on another song, um, to be honest, part of me wanted, there's obviously, just like what we talked about, is upping the first one. And, I was really hoping to get inside a top 10, for the first time. Well, I was top 10 with Outlaws, but get inside that, maybe sneak into the eighth position. But I am like, once I got into the top 40, then it rolled in the top 30. I was like, holy shit. Okay.
Yeah.
My goal with this one, because there's just so much great music out there, and it's filled with, I mean, I was looking at the charts and I had friends being like, dude, like once I entered top 20 and we were there for 7 or 8 weeks, whatever it was. And thank you for really rocking that song for me. That
Yeah,
means the
our
world.
listeners love it. They absolutely love
Thank
it.
you.
Love it.
It was, once I was there, I told myself, you know what, I gave me and my team a pat on the back. So, you're back in the top 20 at US Rock Radio, and looking at that, like, there's the Offspring, there was
Lincoln Park. There's like all of this
Lincoln Park,
stuff coming out. It's crazy. It's such a
but it
busy
was,
time for rock music, no question.
and watching, just there's little Cory Marks from North Bay, Ontario, Canada, and there's
Little Corey.
Lincoln Park here. There's Offspring there. There's all these, and I'm going, holy, and my friends were like, dude, this is like, well, how does it make you feel? I'm like, I don't really know, to be honest. It's cool, but yeah, as you know, we all work really, really hard. I mean, not just myself, an entire team are working behind this track and everything to get there. So it's not like it's just like you wake up and you're like, yeah, all right, top 20, right? So it's a grind. I mean, the tours and minivans and and doing all the grinding part. It's all part of it, and it all makes it that much sweeter when you see it
So,
topping the
what do you
charts.
think it is about you that connects? Because when you did the opening slot for Theory, we had so many WDHA listeners that were there, and everybody hit me up the next day. And I don't think I got any emails that didn't mention you. Like
Wow.
everybody was like, Cory
Huh.
Marks was amazing, was amazing. I know what I think it is that makes you connect, but you give me your feedback on what you think it is first.
I think every time I step on that stage, whether it's just me and my acoustic, like that tour, like the Theory tour, or when I'm with my band, I just want to give them everything that I've got possible. And I know that as a listener, um, it's like when you go to a concert, like when I saw, like, it's just that experience that I've had at concerts. Like I've talked to you about Rush when we went to go see them, and it's like I couldn't talk for the first 5 songs. I was going to bawl my eyes out because there's all this emotion in this, like, and when I, saw Eric Church a handful of times and those guys, there's just, I'm hoping that I'm doing to the crowd what these my favorite artists have done to me as a listener when I go to these concerts and you hear the song kick off and you're like, that's the song, that's the one, and all the lyrics. And I think just really connecting, making sure that I'm connecting with the crowd. I try to make sure that, especially if you're right there in front of me and I could see you and the lights are on enough where I could see you, I have no problem acknowledging somebody in the crowd and just being like staying connected in your face. And it's my job to get everybody pumped up for the headliner. So, and even one day when I am that headliner, I've never really changed. Funny, the other day I was looking back at some of my first festivals I played back in 2011, and
Wow.
man, I had such a good laugh because there's 22-year-old or 23-year-old me, and I'm like, shit, I haven't really changed, like in a good way. Like I'm just always like, just trying, who's here to party, man? Like, let's go. And I think that's probably it. And I'm pretty hard on my sleeve kind of guy, and I think I'm fairly transparent. Where especially when I'm playing music, I'm doing what I love and loving what I do. It's easy just to get the good times rolling, and that's what we're all there for. Forget about life for
There's
for
an
for an hour and a half.
authenticity about you, and it
Thank you.
connects very quickly. I've been doing this a long time, and I
Yeah.
saw it with a lot of our WDHA listeners. They just feel that they know you. There's an authenticity. It's not like you're trying to pull one over on them or you're like a phony dude
Hmm.
or, I don't know, Mr. Slick rock and roller. They just relate to you. A lot of my
Yeah.
listeners here from the Northeast, they're not that far from New York City, but it's all still the same thing. So they
Yeah.
they picked up that authenticity in you, those that heard you on the air, and then those that saw you, and all of a sudden it was like bang zoom. Cory, we need to hear more from him. We love him. Blah blah blah.
Oh,
So I
that's
heard
so
from I
awesome.
heard from everybody. So just so you know, you got
Well,
a
you just made my day.
you
Thank
got
you.
a Jersey fan base. I mean, and a tri-state area fan base with this radio station because they really, really like you. And
Well,
they
thank
were
you.
requesting your music before we were playing it. So,
Wow.
just right at the very beginning there, right when we started playing it, it was like you were just that artist that connected. So I want to do a couple of quick rapid fires with you, a couple of quick
All
rapid
right.
fire questions. I loved the story that you told me in studio when you and your dad experienced Rush
Hmm.
together. And that was like an amazing, amazing story. You can elaborate on it a little bit if you will.
Hmm.
When I ask you if you had to pick one Rush song, and I know it's really hard, but what is the song that means the most to you?
Oof, that's there's so many, as you know, but I think, yeah, it's on this arm.
Where
I
is
gotta
it?
get
I
to the red
saw it. I
screen.
saw it. I love it.
Time stands still. Just I mean, especially now. I mean, every year goes by, we all get a little bit older and hopefully wiser somewhat. But I think that song just because of that, as we talked about in the studio, where my grandma was passing, and it was this big emotional thing where it's like in my mind, only at my early 20s, 21 or whatever I was. Like, yeah, I think I was in my 20s then. I was young, younger than I am now. And, going to say bye to my grandma for the last time. She was still, well with it and everything. I think she was in a hospice at that time. But I was thinking of my dad, like, going to say bye to his mom, not knowing is this going to be the last time, or there's all this. I've always thought that way, put myself in other people's. It's a bit of a double edged sword because it's like shouldn't do that, but I can't help it. You put there's empathy there, like oh my god, I can only imagine how he feels. So there was that being back in his hometown. He's seen Rush at this point 30 or 31 times, and
Wow.
this we knew that this was probably the last time we'd see them too because they were kind of far and few between their tours and life happens and you can't just always boot over to Toronto and go see concerts. And so we weren't sure what was going on. And there was that aspect of it. But when the lights went down, we get to the show, and seeing my dad was like, he was probably 18 again. The lights go down, but then you dan dan dan, and then the lights go on. It's like I'm getting goosebumps now.
Yeah.
It's like there he is. It's fucking Neil, man, and dan dan, and They open with Time Stand Still.
With that
And then,
giant kit, you don't even know where to look.
oh,
You're just like,
yeah.
oh, it's crazy. It reminds me of that show Freaks and Geeks, where he's just like,
Yes.
it's all Neil and it's all drums and it's all everything. And yeah, you
Yeah.
just you do. That song is a time travel song. It's when you're
Oh,
experiencing a Rush show. There's no
children,
question about it.
children growing up and friends getting older, you know, summer's going fast and nights going colder. Like
Yeah, yeah.
just all those
It
little,
is. It's
little,
giving me chills now. Yeah.
right? It's, and just the, experience slips away. Like make this, um, that's that line, right when and Getty's, it's almost like the frequency that he's singing at and everything's at is just perfect. Like when he kicks into freeze this moment a little bit longer, make each sensation a little bit stronger, just like wow. Every time I hear that song, I can go back to that
That
time, that
moment, yeah.
place, that moment, and that's what you want. Every moment of life that you have, it's like please time stand still
Yeah.
just a little bit longer, and my fiance now is always like, you're always like that. It's like you have these big parties, whether it's a birthday party or Christmas, and then you're like, I can't help it.
Um, so there's always that talk of you mixing country and whatever, and I always call that
Mm.
out, dude. I grew up with that. That's Southern rock. That's what we grew up with.
Yeah,
So if you had to
yeah.
pick one of your favorite Southern rock bands, the band that kind of did it for you, and there's so many great ones. I know it's hard to pick one. I could probably think of three off the bat that I love, love, love. But if you had to pick one or two that you think are just like the epitome of melding that for you that have inspired you, who would you pick?
I mean, there's always like I was so growing up, I was so stuck on the, Grand Funk, Deep Purple, Rush, Black Sabbath, which is, all these great music from the 70s and 80s, really. Um, I mean, there's Leonard Skinner. I mean, come on. I mean, that's really, I know that was Travis Tritt's kind of, idols on the rock side when he was starting. But I'd have like, who would your three be if
I
you could
would
think of?
probably, if I had to do my Mount Rushmore, I'd probably have to go Skinnerd Almonds because I'm an almonds
Mm,
maniac. So
hmm.
I've been to more almond shows than I can count. We were always the station that was presenting one of the Beacon shows when they would do their March run. And I was lucky enough to just stand on stage for that 3 hour period of time because I would always be like, I'll host, I'll host,
Yeah,
because we did
yeah.
the DJ thing where you'd go out and welcome the crowd. And the Allman Brothers, I mean, for me, just
Yeah,
watching JMO and Greg at the keyboard. Greg is just like rah, go crazy.
yeah.
I see like Zach Wild, and there's a
Oh,
reincarnation of Greg Allman in him sometimes when
hmm.
he sings. That's crazy to me. So and Molly Hatchet. I loved Molly Hatchet records, growing up as a kid. I just thought that they were amazing and mysterious and fun and cool for me. So I loved that genre of Southern rock. And I think artists like you are bringing a little bit of that back. And I love it.
Well, would you? I mean, I got this one thing that came to mind when you asked that question was and I'm not sure if that would classify Southern rock, but Jackson Brown like running on empty, you
Absolutely. I mean,
know?
you can totally get that singer-songwriter vibe in that. And that's who Jackson was. He changed, he evolved so much. He started off as that California sound, but then he
Yeah,
kind of got a little more into that, and I always think of like Southern rock as being like the kind of the working class
yeah,
man's
yeah,
rock and roll. And
yeah.
there
Blue
are
collar
just,
rock.
yeah, blue collar rock and roll. There's no doubt about that. Best show you saw in the last 2 years of a tour that you were not on?
Well, Bryan Adams.
Bryan Adams. Yep.
I'd have to say Bryan Adams. All three times were spectacular. The first time being it was right before I was heading out with Five Finger Death Punch and Brantley Gilbert, which I was going to say Five Finger because their show is just so electric. It's fire and craziness, and it's great. But I was on tour with them, so I can't count that. Uh, I would have to say again, I was on tour with them as well, but Hailstorm was just a great show, start to finish, and Lizzie's just incredible. The whole band. Um, but as a pure spectator, you know what? Forgot another one. Def Leppard.
I
Def
love the
Leppard
lap. Oh my
was
goodness.
like when I I grew up on Leopard, and I know a lot of people will be like Leopard over Rush, and I'm like, no way, man, like Rush all the way. But I get it now, and it's one of those bands, and I think that's so important that I try to do, and I guess mimic is, you go see a band like, yeah, I know their songs, but then you go see them and it's like that's all you listen to for the next like month. It's just nothing but them. That's how it was for me. And when you hear that out of touch, out of reach, yeah, there's 42,000 people, and again goosebumps, and I'm going like, wait a minute. I look back and there's just like 40,000 lights, phones, just everything like open wide. You're just like, oh my God,
Def
yeah,
Leppard, absolutely. Are
it's
you kidding
just
me? Pyromania for
beautiful.
me. I love Hysteria, but Pyromania was a life changer when I first heard that and saw those guys on MTV. Joe Elliott jumping off the drum riser with the
Yeah,
Union
yeah.
Jack shirt, and I was like, "Oh my God, what
It's
is
just
this?" I mean, that production on those records
it's so
is
good.
brilliant, amazing, amazing songs, absolutely timeless. And something that you like to do before we wrap up that people would never imagine you really like to do. What do you like to do that might be a shocker to people? Are you like a baker or a cooker or
I
a
like cooking.
you do?
You know what? I'm not one of those like Emily will make like she finds this stuff on Emily, my fiance. She finds this stuff on Instagram, and like everything's got to be like, and I admire that, and she makes incredible food. But for me, I'll be like, what do we have in the fridge? Maybe the steak will good. Like I'm just so improv. Like I don't
Yeah.
measure anything, and if
Yeah.
it's good, hope it's good. And she's always said that too. And some friends would be like, man, like you cook some like where did you get this or whatever. I'm like, I honestly just figured like this and this go
You
good
have a
together.
knack. You have this
Yeah,
knack
I
for
think
making
so.
things.
I
Oh,
think
that's
so.
good. I like that.
And I've only done it once. Part of the whole adrenaline junkie thing, but aside from flying and flying planes, jumping out of them. I
You
jumped
are
with
a
the
jumper. Oh, because for
yeah,
those that may not know, Cory is a pilot. He's a very well-rounded guy. There's a lot of things that he does. So you jump out.
yeah.
And when you're jumping out at that very moment, what are you thinking? Are you thinking this is great? Is there a moment
Well,
where you're like
I've only
saying,
done it
"Holy crap,
I've
I
only
hope I
done it
make it"?
once. I've only done it once, and it was with the Canadian Forces Skyhawks. So that's like
Oh my
the Golden
God.
Knights,
That's
the Golden
crazy.
Knights parachute team that the U.S.
Jeez.
has. And I just remember I have the altimeter watch on, and it takes a while to get up there. We're in this, I call it the old lunch box, the sky van, and we're sitting there, and you could tell people are starting to like, oh my God, but we got up high, 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 and then this one guy, one team member, he's like, all right, I'm out of here, and just I guess he was starting to get hypoxia, which is a lack of oxygen
Oh
once you
my
get once you
God.
get above 10,000 feet
Freaking out here.
for X amount of time.
Can't
So,
breathe.
and he just like just gone, like just out the door, and we're like, and I kind of got to this
Oh
point
my
where I'm like,
God.
well, this you can't because once you're strapped in, they're like, no, like even if you're freaking out, they're gonna like take you. They're throwing you out with you're with a guy.
You
You're
have to
tandem.
go out even if you're
Oh
freaking
yeah,
out?
they're not gonna not like. There's a lot of people that'll pass out like right away. They're like, oh, so I'm strapped up. I'm strapped up to my guy. The thing is, I'm fairly tall guy, and with those boots on, I'm 6'1" or whatever. But the guy that's strapped to my back is like 5'8" or something. So I get up and I start getting smack on my legs, and he's really French. He's like, "Man, you have to bend your knee so I can walk you out, man. I'm not on the." And I look back, and his feet are this far off the ground. He's kind of. I'm like, "Oh shit, sorry, dude." So I kind of like I bend down, but we're walking, we're walking. He's like, "Okay." And then once you get there, like just put your head back, and we're just gonna fall backwards, and then
Oh
you're gonna
my
be.
God.
So I'm looking, and he's like, "You see that?" And I mean, the X from where we're looking is like it's like this big. It's an orange X from we were at 14 about 14,000 feet,
Oh,
and this X when like it's the fucking size of a football field, but it's like this big, and it's like we're gonna go down there, and you're like, how the heck? Okay,
getting
and it was a
there.
beautiful sunny day. You could even at that altitude, it wasn't like super high compared to an airliner, but you can slightly see for all those flat earthers out there. You can kind of see the that little semicircle because you can see for hundreds of miles.
What an
So
experience.
here we go, and I put my head back. We do the flip, and then immediately I'm just like, yeah, this is. I would loved it. It was the coolest thing. And then you pulled the chute around, I think around 1,000 feet, and it's like all of a sudden you hear like this, and then it's just like just nothing. You just hear the flap of the parachute, like and you're just like, this is the most. If for the gentleman out there, if you don't get anything stuck in the in that area,
Yeah.
because that does
Yeah.
happen, unfortunately, right?
Yeah.
Because you're strapped up, and then
Yeah.
if you're hanging loose, and
Then
once the chute goes, everything just yanks up, right? So
yeah.
you're really
Yeah.
uptight.
Right.
You're
If
like
you're in a
Chris
good
Farley.
position, you can enjoy it. Oh my
Yes, and
God.
even then, there's still some pressure, but then you're just like, holy crap. And then we come back. There's a video of it. I have it on Instagram from a few years ago. They had a ghost, I guess a ghoster is what you call it or whatever. And he jumped down with us. So he's got the video camera, and I'm like right in the camera, like, yeah, man, this is awesome. But then we come down, and he's like, okay, well, looks like we're coming a little hot. So we'll just keep your legs up, and we'll just kind of glide on our butts. And I'm thinking like, man, if we end up on stone or something, because you're just wearing this little suit, like this is gonna suck. But it was all good. And I took out the guy that landed ahead of us so he can catch our landing videotaping. We took him out, which was it was a kind of a funny. No one was hurt, but he was there, and we kind of came in hot, and we kind of went back, but my legs hit his, and like you saw him, like the camera, the film just ends, and
Oh my
it was so
God.
much. It was incredible. It
And
was
you're gonna
really.
do it again. I can
I would.
tell
I
you're
would.
gonna I can
I
tell you're gonna do it again.
I would do it again.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm actually even thinking of getting my ticket for that as well, just because of having the experience of controlling your own parachute and kind of knowing what's going on, because of the airplanes that I eventually want to fly. Like when we're doing all this kind of stuff.
Oh
And
wow.
if you ever have to bail out for emergency purposes, I'd like to
Yeah.
at least have experience of
Yeah.
jumping out of an airplane and
Yeah.
controlling myself. So yeah. So yeah, I would do it again, and I'll do it any chance I get.
And I want everybody to pick up or download, however you get your music. Sorry
Yeah.
for Nothing. It's such an amazing piece of music, and you're a great new
Thank you.
artist, and we're always happy to have you. And you're one of us now. You're a Jersey guy, man.